Great Garvey Day, brothers and sisters. Today we are gathered to read from the book Message to the People, the course of African philosophy. Now I'm going to start with lesson one, intelligence. I'm going to start with lesson one, intelligence, education, universal knowledge, and how to get it. You must never stop learning. The world's greatest men and women were people who educated themselves outside of the university with all the knowledge that university gives. You have the opportunity of doing the same thing. The university student does read and study. One must never stop reading. Read everything that you can read that is of standard knowledge. Don't waste time reading trashy literature. This is to say, don't pay any attention to the 10-cent novels, Wild West stories, and cheap sentimental books. But where there is a good plot and a good story in the form of a novel, read it. It is necessary to read it for the purpose of getting information on human nature. The idea is that personal experience is not enough for a human to get all the useful knowledge of life, because the individual life is too short, so we must feed on the experience of others. The literature we read should include the biography and autobiography of men and women who have accomplished greatness in their particular line. Whenever you can buy these books and own them, and whilst you are reading them, make pencil or pen notes of the striking sentences and paragraphs that you should like to remember, so that when you have to refer to the book of any thought that you would like to refresh your mind on, you will not have to read over the whole book. You should also read the best poetry for inspiration. The standard poets have always been the most inspirational creators. From a good line of poetry, you may get the inspiration for the career of a lifetime. Many a great man and woman was first inspired by some attractive line or verse of poetry. There are good poets and bad poets, just like there are good novels and bad novels. Always select the best poets for your inspirational urge. Read history incessantly until you master it. This means your own national history, the history of the world, social history, industrial history, and the history of the different sciences, but primarily the history of man. If you do not know what went on before you came here and what is happening at the time you live, but away from you, you will not know the world, and you will be ignorant of the world and mankind. You can only make the best out of life by knowing and understanding it. To know, you must fall back on the intelligence of others who came before you and have left their records behind. To be able to read intelligently, you must first be able to understand the language of your country. To do this, you must be well acquainted with its grammar and the science of it. Every 6 months, you should read over again the science of language that you speak so as not to forget its rules. People judge you by your writing and your speech. If you write badly and incorrectly, they become prejudiced towards your intelligence. And if you speak badly and incorrectly, those who hear you become disgusted and will not pay much attention to you, but in their hearts laughed after you. A leader who is to teach men and present any fact of truth to man must first be learned in the subject. Never write or speak on a subject you know nothing about, for there is always somebody who knows that particular subject to laugh at you or to ask you embarrassing questions that may make you laugh at you. You can know about any subject under the sun by reading about it. If you cannot buy the books outright and own them, go to your public circulating library in your district or your town so as to get use of those books. You should do that as you may refer to them for information. You should read at least 4 hours a day. The best time to read is in the evening after you've retired from your work and after you have rested and before sleeping hours. But do so before morning so that during your sleeping hours, what you have read may become subconscious. That is to say, planted in your memory. Never go to bed without doing some reading. Never keep the constant company of anybody who does not know as much as you or is as educated as you, and from whom you cannot learn something or reciprocate your learning, especially if the person is illiterate or ignorant, because constant association with such a person will unconsciously cause you to drift into the peculiar culture of ignorance of that person. Also, try to associate with people from who you can learn something. Contact with cultured persons and with books is the best companionship you can have and keep. By reading good books and keeping the company of the authors of the books or the subjects of the books, when otherwise you could not meet them in the social contact of life. Never go down in intelligence to those who are below you, but if possible, help to lift them up to you and always try to ascend to those who are above you and be their equal with the hope of being their master. Continue always in the application of the things you desire educationally, culturally, or otherwise, and never give up until you reach the objective, and you can reach the objective if others have done so before you, providing by doing in by doing it that is possible. In your desire to accomplish greatness, you must first decide in your own mind what direction you desire to seek the greatness. And when you have so, decide in your own mind, work incessantly towards it. The particular thing that you may want should be before you at all time, and whatsoever it takes to get it or make it possible should be undertaken. Use your faculties and persuasion to achieve all you set your mind on. Try never to repeat yourself in any one discourse in saying the same thing over and over again, except you are making new points, because repetition is tiresome and it annoys those who hear the repetition. Therefore, try to possess as much universal knowledge as possible through reading, so as to be able to be free of repetition in trying to drive home a point. No one is ever too old to learn. Therefore, you should take advantage of every educational facility. If you should hear of a great man or woman who is to lecture or speak in your town or on any given subject, and the person is an authority on the subject, always make time to go and hear him. This is what is meant by learning from others. You should learn the two sides of every story so as to be able to properly debate a question and hold your ground with the side that you support. If you only know one side of a story, you cannot argue intelligently nor effectively. As for instance, to combat communism, you must know about it. Otherwise, people will take advantage of you and win a victory over your ignorance. Anything that you are going to challenge, you must first know about it so as to be able to defeat it. The moment you are ignorant about anything, the person who has the intelligence of that thing will defeat you. Therefore, get knowledge, get it quickly, get it studiously, but get it anyway. Knowledge is power. When you know a thing and can hold your ground on that thing and win over your opponents on that thing, those who hear you learn to have confidence in you and will trust your ability. Never, therefore, attempt anything without being able to protect yourself on it. For every time you are defeated, it always takes away from your prestige, and you are not as respected as before. All the knowledge you want in this world, and all that you have to do is to go seeking it and never stop until you have found it. You can find knowledge or the information about it in the public libraries. If it is not on your own bookshelf, try to have a book and own it on every bit of knowledge you want. You may generally get these books at second-hand bookstores or the sometimes one-fifth of the original value. Always have a well-equipped book. Always have a well-equipped shelf of books. Nearly all information about mankind is to be found in the Encyclopedia Britannia. This is the expensive set of books that this is an expensive set of books, but try to get them. Buy a complete edition for yourself and keep it at your home. And whenever you are in doubt about anything, go to it and you will find it there. The value of knowledge is to use it. It is not humanly possible that a person can retain all the knowledge of the world. But if a person knows how to search for all the knowledge of the world, he will find it when he wants it. A doctor or a lawyer, although he has passed his examination in college, does not know all the laws and does not know all the techniques of medicine, but he has the fundamental knowledge. When he wants a particular kind of knowledge, he goes to the medical books or law books and refers to the particular law or how to use the recipe of medicine. You must therefore know where to find your facts and use them as you want. No one will know where you get them, but you will have the facts. And by using the facts correctly, you will think you a wonderful person, a great genius, and a trusted leader. In reading, it is not necessary or compulsory that you agree with everything you read. You must always use or apply your own reasoning to what you have read, based upon what you already know as touching the facts on what you have read. Pass judgment on what you read based upon these facts. When I say facts, I mean things that cannot be disputed. You may read thoughts that are old and opinions that are old and have changed since they were written. You must search to find out the latest facts on the particular subject. Only when these facts are consistently maintained in what you should read. You agree with them, otherwise you are entitled to your own opinion. Always have up-to-date knowledge. You can gather this information from the latest books and the latest periodicals, journalists, and newspapers. Read your daily newspaper every day. Read a standard monthly journal every month, a standard weekly magazine every week, a standard quarterly magazine every quarter, and by this you will find the new knowledge of the whole year in addition to the books you read, whose facts have not altered in that year. Don't keep old ideas, bury them as new ones come. How to read. Use every spare minute you have in reading. If you're going on a journey that will take an hour, carry something with you to read for that hour until you have reached the place. If you are sitting down waiting for somebody, have something in your pocket and read until that person comes. Don't waste time. Anytime you think you have to waste, put it into reading. Carry with you a small pocket dictionary and study words while waiting or traveling, or a small pocket volume on some particular subject. Read through at least one book every week. Separate and distinct from your newspaper and journals. It will mean that at the end of 1 year, you will have had read 52 different subjects. After 5 years, you would have read over 250 books. You may be considered then a well read man or a well read woman, and there will be great difference between you and the person who has not read one book. You will be considered intelligent, and the other person will be considered ignorant. You and that person therefore will be living in two different worlds. One one the world of ignorance and the other the world of intelligence. Never forget that intelligence rules the world and ignorance carries the burden. Therefore, remove yourself as far away from ignorance as possible and seek as much as possible to be intelligent. Your language being English, you should study the English language thoroughly. To know the English language thoroughly, you ought to be acquainted with Latin because most of the English words are Latin of origin. It is also advisable that you know the French language because most of the books that you read in English carry Latin and French phrases and words. There is no use reading a page or a paragraph of a book or even a sentence without understanding it. If the paragraph has foreign words in it, go to the dictionary before you pass over the words. If you don't know the meaning of the words, never pass over a word without knowing its meaning. The dictionary and the books on world building that can be acquired from booksellers will help you greatly. I know a boy who was ambitious to learn. He didn't have the opportunity of an early school education because he had to work 10 hours a day. He was determined to learn. So he took to work with him every day a simplified grammar. He would read and memorize passages and the rules of grammar while at work. After 1 year, he was almost an expert in the grammar of his language. He knew the different parts of speech. He could paraphrase, analyze, and construct sentences. He also took with him a pocket dictionary and he would write out 25 new words with their meanings every day and study these words with their meanings. After 1 year, he had a speaking vocabulary of more than 3,000 words. He continued this for several years, and when he became a man, he had a vocabulary of over 15,000 words. He became an author because he could write in his language, because he had command of the words. When he wrote was his experience, and he recorded his experiences in the best words of his language. At the same time, he was not able to write properly, so he took with him to work what is called a copying book, and practiced the copying of letters until he was able to write a very good hand. He naturally became acquainted with literature, and so he continued reading extensively. When he died, he was one of the greatest scholars the world ever knew. Apply the story to yourself. There is nothing in this world that you want that you can have, so long as it is possible in nature and man has achieved it before. The greatest men and women in the world burn the midnight lamp. That is to say, when their neighbors and household are in bed, they are reading, studying, and thinking. When they rise in the morning, they are always ahead of their neighbors and their household in the thing that they were studying, reading, and thinking. A daily repetition of this will carry them daily ahead and above their neighbors and household. Practice this rule. It is wise to study a couple of subjects at a time. For instance, a little geography, a little psychology, a little ethics, a little theology, and a little philosophy, a little mathematics, and a little science, on which a sound academic education is built. By doing this week after week, month after month, year after year, you will be so learned in the liberal arts as to be ready and fit for your place in the affairs of the world. If you know what others do not know, they will want to hear you. You will then become invaluable in your community and to your country, because men and women will want to hear you and see you everywhere. As stated before, books are one's best companions. Try to get them and keep them. A method of doing so is every time you have 10 cents or 20 cents or $1 to spend foolishly, either on your friends or on yourself, think how much useful if that 10 or 25 cents or dollar would be invested in a book, and so invest it. It may be just the thing you have been looking for to give you a thought by which you may win the hearts of the world. The 10 cents, 25 cents, or dollar, therefore, may turn out to be an investment of worth to the extent of $1 million. Never lend anybody the book that you want. You will never get it back. Never allow anybody to go to your bookshelf in your absence, because the very book that you may want most may be taken away from the shelf, and you may never be able to get one of that kind again. If you have a library of your own, lock it when you're not at home. Spend most of your spare time in your library. If you have a radio, keep it in your own library and use it exhaustively to listen to lectures, recitals, speeches, and good music. You can learn a lot from the radio. You can be inspired by a lot of good music. Good music carries the sentiment of harmony, and you may think many a good thought out of listening to good music. Read a chapter of the Bible every day, Old and New Testament. The greatest wisdom of the age is to be found in the scriptures. You can always quote from the scriptures. It is the quickest way of winning approval. Tragedy of white injustice. 1. Read and study thoroughly the poem Tragedy of White Injustice and apply its sentiments and statements in connection with the historical character and behavior of the white man. Know it so well as always to be able to be on guard against any professions of the white man in his suggested friendship of the Negro. The poem exposes the white man's behavior in his history and its intent to suggest distrust of him in every phase of life. Never allow it to get into the hands of a white man if possible. You can improve your English as you go along by reading critically the books of the language. That is to say, you must pay close attention to the constructions of sentences and paragraphs as you see them in the books you read. Imitate the style. Read with observation. Never read carelessly and recklessly. In reading books written by white authors or whatsoever kind, be aware of the fact that they are not written for your particular benefit or the benefit of your race. They always write from their own point of view and only in the interests of their own race. Never swallow wholly what the white man writes or says without first critically analyzing it and investigating it. The white man's trick is to deceive other people for his own benefit and profit. Always be on your guard against him in whatsoever he does or say. Never take chances with him. His school books in the elementary and high schools, colleges, and universities are all fixed up to suit his own purposes, to put him on top and keep him on top of the other people. Don't trust him. Beware, beware. You should study carefully the subject of etymology. It is the subject that causes races to know the difference between one race and another. Ethnic relationships are important, for they reveal the characteristics of one people as different from another. There is no doubt that each race has different habits and manners of behavior. You must know them so as to be able to deal with them. These books are on this subject in the library. In reading and searching for truth, always try to get that which is particularly helpful to the Negro. Every thought that strikes you, see how it fits in with the Negro and how to what extent you can use it to his benefit or in his or in his behalf. Your entire obsession must be to see things from the Negro point of view, remembering always that you are a Negro striving for Negro supremacy in every department of life, so that any truth you see or any facts you gather must be twisted to suit the Negro psychology of things. The educational system of today hides the truth as far as the Negro is concerned. Therefore, you must certainly scan everything you read, particularly history, to see what you can pick out of the good of the race. For instance, you will read the Egyptians were a great people, the Carthaginians, the Libyans, etc. But you will not be told that they were black people or Negroes. Therefore, you should go beyond the mere statement of these events to discover the truth that will be credible to your race. Therefore, in any case that you would ask, where did the Libyans, Carthaginians, or Egyptians get their civilization from? Following following that kind of investigation, you will come upon the truth that it was all original Negro and subsequently became Negroid. That is to say, subsequent people were mixed with other people's blood who were no doubt conquered by the Negro. As a fact, the original Egyptians were black men and women, and so the Carthaginians and the Libyans. But in the later centuries, they became mixed in blood, just as blacks are being mixed in America and the West Indies by the infusion of white blood through the domination of the white man. Never yield to any statement in history or statement made by an individual caring not how great that the Negro was nobody in history. Even if you cannot prove it, always claim the Negro was great. Read everything you can get written by Negroes and their ancestry, going back 6,000 years. There are statements in the Bible, in the Old and New Testament, to show that black was always important color among the races of man. Abraham had company with a black woman, even though he had his wife Sarah, by whom he had Ishmael. All the pharaohs were black. Tutankhamun, whose bones and body were dug up not so very long ago, and the Luxor in Egypt was a black pharaoh. The Sphinx in Egypt, which stood through the millenniums, has black features. It is evident that as art it was portrayed to teach us the greatness of men. When you are dealing with the Jews, let them know that they were once slaves in Egypt. If you have to say so, that is good grounds for saying that civilization started in Africa, passed from and through northern Africa into southern Europe, from which the Greeks and Romans and the people of Asia Minor made good copies. The swarthy color of the Asiatics and the brunette color of the southern European are due to the fact that the cultured and civilized blacks of Africa mixed their blood with them. Search all the history and all literature and the Bible to find the facts to support this argument and hold it to with a grip that will never loosen. Things that may not be true can be made so if we repeat them long and often enough. Therefore, always repeat statements that will give your race status and an advantage. This is how the white man has built up his system of superiority. He is always telling you he is superior, and he has written history and literature to prove it. You must do the same. One of the backgrounds of your argument, which cannot be disputed, is that you are older, that any other man as a race because you are black. Your argument is that in nature everything by way of age darkens. Because you are darker than the rest of men proves logically that you are older than the rest of men. Another proof of that is that even among white people, they grow darker in skin as they grow older in age and in lifetime. If one individual were to live for 6,000 years, he would surely not be white. If he were born white, he would be as dark as the darkest of men. Therefore, the argument that the black man is black because as man he is older than the other man is good. Use it everywhere you go to defeat the white man in his belief that you are sprung from something else. Use the argument that the white man is white because most of the time when the black man was great in Africa and had succeeded in running him across the Mediterranean into southern Europe, he had to hide himself in caves where there was very little light and air. He was almost covered up for most of the time in darkness. In natural creation, the child in the womb of the mother is almost white, even though it is a black child. It is almost born white and doesn't change color until it comes in contact with light and air. Living in caves for as many centuries, the white man therefore became colorless, and the length of time made it so that he was born naturally white. You must interpretate anthropology to suit yourself. The thing for you to do is to refute every pertinent statement of the white man that tends to degrade you and to elevate him. Turn the tables on him and search for all the reasons in the world you can find to justify it. This is how new thoughts are given out by creation. Never yield to the statement of inferiority. In reading Christian literature and accepting the doctrine of Christ, lay special claim to your association with Jesus and the Son of God. Show that while the white and yellow worlds, that is to say the worlds of Europe and Asia Minor, persecuted and crucified Jesus, the Son of God, it was the black race through Simon, the black Syrian, who befriended the Son of God and took him across and bore it alongside of him. up to the heights of Calvary. Therefore, the Roman Catholics have no rightful claim to the cross, nor any other professing Christianity before the Negro makes his claim. The cross is the property of the Negro in his religion because it was he who bought it. Never admit that Jesus Christ was a white man. Otherwise, he could not be the Son of God and the God to redeem all mankind. Jesus Christ had the blood of all races in his veins, and tracing the Jewish race back to Abraham and to Moses, from which Jesus sprang through the line of Jesse, you will find Negro blood everywhere. Therefore, Jesus had mostly Negro blood in him. Read the genealogy tree of Jesus in the Bible, and you will learn where he sprang. It is a fact that the white man has borrowed his civilization from other people. The first civilization was the Negro black people. The second civilization was the brown peoples, Indians, and the third civilization belonged to the yellow people, the Chinese, the Mongols. The last civilization up to the present belongs to the white man. All civilization goes back to the black man in the Nile Valley of Africa. Therefore, in reading, search for all these facts. Never stop reading and never stop until you find the proof of them. You must pay great attention to sociology. Get the best books on the subject, then you can, and read them thoroughly. Find out the social relationship among other races so that you may know how to advise your people in their social behavior. Never admit that the Negro is more immoral than the white man. Try to prove the contrary. Socially, the white man has debauched and debased all other races because of his dominant power. He is responsible for all illegitimacy among the races than any other race. He has left bastard children everywhere he has been. Therefore, he is not competent to say that he is socially and morally poorer than any other race. The mixed population amongst Negroes from slavery to present in certain countries is due to the white man's immorality. Therefore, if you should hear anyone talking about moral depravity among Negroes and the moral excellence of the whites, draw the above facts to their attention. When thorough reading and research you have discovered any new fact helpful to the dignity, prestige, character, and accomplishment of the Negro, always make a noise about it. You should always keep with you a notebook and a fountain pen and a indelible pencil and make a note in that book of anything you hear or see that you would like to remember. Always keep at home a larger notebook in which you may transfer the thought or experience so that it may not be lost to your memory. At least once every 3 months, read over that book. As that book becomes more voluminous with facts, read it over at least once a year. Be constantly reading these facts. They will be planted in your subconscious mind and you'll be able to use them without even knowing that you are doing so. By keeping these facts at your very important experiences on record at the end of a full life may have a volume of great value, such as Albert Humbard's scrapbook. Get a copy of this book. It contains valuable inspiration. Always have a thought. Always make it a beautiful thought. The world is attracted to beauty, either in art or in its expression. Therefore, try to read, think, and speak beautiful things. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. I felt in the clutch of circumstance. I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade. And yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged the punishments, the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Invictus by W.E. Henley.
Yes, my people. I want to say, give a special thanks to our brother Reese first. Excellent reading, my brother. Excellent reading.
Yeah, great Garvey Day.
A great Garvey day to you, sir. So in reading that, you know, like for those that don't know, this was one of the first books I ever read. You know, this book had a major impact on my life, and I think it was needed for the people to read it. And we know how it is sometimes. People don't want to take on the course, so we're giving the course to the people weekly. Every week, we will be given a different chapter from this book until we have completed it. So, you know, in reflecting of that chapter that we was reading on intelligence, education, universal knowledge, and how to get it, you know, it's fundamental that we read. You know, it's very important to read. You know, Marcus Garvey said that no man is going to live long enough to know everything. So in reading books, in reading autobiographies and things of that nature, we are learning, you know, more than we would in our lifetime. So if a person reads a lot, he begins to understand a lot more. So reading is very important. It will make you stand out against those that don't read. I know we're in the information of YouTube now, so a lot of people are getting a lot of information from YouTube, which is good. But I think it's very important that we go back to the source of things, because things will resonate with you all differently once you read that information for yourself. And many people, you know, they miss out things. You know, everybody's got an agenda when they're presenting information. Sometimes they want to fit the information to their narrative. So when you get to the source, you'll be able to have the source. You understand, brothers and sisters? But yeah, I want to big you up again, brother Reese, first for reading that, man. I know that, you know, we don't read out loud sometimes. So, you know, I want to give you a black hand for your reading, my brother. So I want to ask you a question though. What stood out with you the most in this chapter?
What stood out the most for me was basically always be reading, always been trying to improve yourself, and always try and put your race first with everything you do, even if it may be a little, how we say, white lies, but try and mix it so for the betterment and the empowerment of your race. You know what I'm saying? And anything you do in life, try and be, how we say, like a renaissance man, a well-read man. Because at the end of the day, the so-called enemy, he makes his own propaganda, and he's been writing the books for many a year to twist it to his favor. So I think we must do likewise for the betterment and in the empowerment of our own people. That's what really struck a chord with me.
Okay. You know what stood out for me was this one where he goes, never write or speak on a subject you know nothing about. For there's always somebody who knows more about that particular subject to laugh at you. I think a lot of the times, yeah, we as a people, we're quick to speak on things that we know nothing about.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
And what that does is, yeah, is sometimes that confuses people even more. Because if you don't know about something, it's better you listen to the man that knows, and then or go and study what it is that you want to know. So then when you
Mm.
speak about it, you can truly say you know about the subject that you're speaking about. Because even when we talk about Garvey, I think there's a lot of people talking about Garvey that don't understand Garveyism. And that is a problem. So that's one of the things that stood out to me um, in that book, in this chapter, you know, and he, you know, he highlights, you know, never go down in intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely, 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 and try and hang around with people that can lift you up in
That's very,
intelligence.
yeah, because if you hang around fools, you become a fool.
Exactly, and we need iron to sharpen the iron.
That's right, because knowledge is power.
Mm, knowledge is power. Yes, indeed.
And it's even more powerful when you apply that knowledge that you are seeking. And he talks about how to read. If you're going, if like a lot of people work and they're on the train a lot, going to and fro from work, that is a great time for you to read. Just those little journeys. You'll be surprised how much you begin to finish books. Your reading will grow. Like I know a lot of people have said, they need to get better on their reading, or advance in their reading, or just take reading more serious. Well, that's a great way to do it. When you're on the train, just or waiting at the bus stop or on the bus, take out the book and read, and you'll be surprised. Marcus Garvey talked about reading a book a week. I wonder how much Garveyites today are still on that, one book a week. Because the average book, I would say, is about between 6 and maybe 10 hours worth of reading. So, he breaks down how to read. He said, don't waste time in certain of those novels unless there's something in that novels can inspire you, or is, connected to some real life situations. Like I already mentioned about autobiographies, it's good to read about great men that has come before us, because it will inspire us. If man has done it before, then man can do it again. Um, yeah, he says there's nothing in the world that you want that you cannot have, so long as it's possible in nature and man has achieved it before. So like all of those great people that we look up to, or we have, in higher regards, we can be like them. If we read, we study, we can obtain that level of greatness and become giants just like they was.
Definitely, definitely, and as you said before, the
Oh,
application,
definitely.
because what I think what we find with us, like a lot of us will do the reading just to debate on what we've read.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? Then it
Yeah,
then it then it
yeah.
then it goes into something else. Some kind of prison babble, and we're just debating for the sake of debating, and no work's actually being done. So yeah, labor on the point of application, as you said, brother. Application is of the highest importance, especially in these times.
Definitely, there's a lot of people like that. They will tell you what everybody says. They will say, and the great Garvey said, Brother Malcolm said, or
Yeah,
a larger foreign Kuma said, or whatever, whoever said. But they're not actually organizing. They're not actually in the community trying to better our people. So, it's that's a waste of knowledge, in my opinion, man. We've got to be organizing. We've got to be taking the knowledge that we have and presenting it to the people, to inspire them to transform their life with the information we're given. And that is what this book really was. It was a book where Garvey was given to his students so that they will know, so that they can continue the work in the right manner with the right philosophy. And I always say, it's good knowing about people in history, but it's better to have a race first mentality, because you
mm,
can know about Malcolm X, but if you're not race first, then the knowledge that is kind of dead. Like you have to have the mentality to go with the reading, to go with to go with the application of this to our people. I'm thinking, what else can I say about this chapter? There's really so much. He talks about, history. If you read history, and I guess at this time a lot of people wasn't privy to the knowledge about the ancient Egyptians and things like that. So Garvey was telling people that, listen, if you was to study, you would realize that all of these great civilizations, they are African people that are creating these civilizations. I mean, today a lot of people may know these things, maybe some don't, but majority of people will have a better understanding to a lot of historical things. However, how many of them have actually studied these things? Because in studying, that's when you truly know something.
mm-hmm.
And he talked about studying carefully.
Yeah, don't be careless.
Don't be careless enough. We
Don't be
study.
careless.
Yes, my
Yeah.
brother, and that is very important. That is very important to study carefully and understand and break down information. Take your time with it. Let it marinate.
Yes.
He talks about reading before bed so that your subconscious will be reflecting on what you have read.
Mm.
Also, he said that's the best time to read is before you go to bed, because when you sleep, you'll be remembering what you have
Mm-hmm.
read in your sleep.
Absolutely.
And he also says something prolific. He says something about the Europeans when they write, they don't write for our benefit, and we must bear that in mind when we're reading their text. Nobody is writing for the upliftment of the African people, but the African people. You know, he's not the European man is not honest. You know, so take his writing sometimes with a pinch of salt.
And pepper.
Yeah, and he goes, never admit that Jesus Christ was a white man.
Absolutely.
No, we're not in the UNIA. We're not a religious movement. We are a spiritual movement, nevertheless. But if people are gonna be Christians in the movement, you know, you have to see God as or Jesus as a black person. That is fundamental to Garveyism. You know, if every nation sees God in their image, then the black man and black woman must do too. Let me see what else now. He talks about the mixing of the gene, what that has created, illegitimate children among the race. You know, the white man has left behind. He used the term bastard children
Bastard.
everywhere he has
Yeah.
been. You know, this is not to offend anybody. This is not to offend anybody. However, we're just talking the facts. And if you study, as this goes on and we develop this, one of the books that I would like to get into one day would be The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. And he basically breaks down how these mixed children, they pledged their allegiance to the white race, and they were used against us. And you can see in certain parts in Africa how lighter skinned people, and even in the Caribbean and the Americas, are being used against us and have been used against us. So it's about giving them the information for themselves to work towards the upliftment of the race, because we don't separate ourselves from our people. That's one of the things about the UNIA. We don't look down on people for things that took place. A person of mixed heritage didn't ask to be born mixed. As long as they work for the upliftment of the race, we will treat them like brothers and sisters within the race, which I think is a beautiful thing, because a lot of the time we find ourselves fighting against ourselves. I always say that we mustn't separate ourselves from ourselves. He talked a little bit about music also. He mentioned that music, with a good message is good. We want good music. We want
Yes.
music to uplift us, music to heal us.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want music to degrade us. And a lot of the time today, that seems to be the case. The music is being used to continuously degrade us and make us degenerates.
Especially on a day like this.
We don't,
That's
but we know that is a open up a can of worms, because some people will say it's the culture and it's African and rare. But come on, brothers and sisters, how much people that was attending the Notting Hill Carnival today was conscious about the history of our people's struggle and what the carnival meant? Very little. I think people just went to this dagger, and women went out to dance and dress half naked. And it is what it
mm-hmm.
is, man. We got to be honest about whatever it is. Go if you want to go. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to stop people from doing what they want to do, but don't try and act like it's some liberating thing, because it really
Mm-hmm.
isn't, brothers and sisters. If we would carry ourselves in a better manner when we're doing these things, because people that know better
Do
do better.
better.
Do you understand? And a man or a woman that have self-respect are not gonna have their arse cheeks out. And some people can say we've been sexualized, or it's a European thing now, whatever they want to say. But the reality is, we have grown up in a Western society where these morals and values somehow have been bestowed upon us. So someone carrying themselves half naked down the street, they're going to be treated in a certain way. based upon the way they're dressed. So if you want respect from people, carry yourself respectful. You know, there's another chapter in here where Garvey talks about leadership. We're gonna get into that next. I don't think it will be next week, but we're gonna get into that chapter of the book when that chapter arises. So definitely, we're not against our people in any way. You know, enjoy yourself in it. Do you know what I mean? But also, you know, do better in it. You know what I mean? And don't lie to yourself, and definitely don't come to Race First and Brother Minister and try and put that jazz on us about it's an African thing, because there was nothing African about carnival when I was growing up. And I don't think there was anything African today. People were talking about, you know, the outfits and rare. But come on, brothers and sisters, man. Are you going to carnival for African liberation, or you go in there to wind up your waistline? And all of these things. But let's move on from the carnival thing anyway. We don't want to waste any more time on that. The elder is trying to, I can see the elder trying to connect, but there seems to be some problem in saying his device is not connected. And we really would love to have the elder, you know, give a few words on this topic of oh yeah, you're here. I can see him. We're in the building. Greetings, elder.
Yes, sir. Great Garvey Day. Greetings to you.
Great Garvey Day, sir.
Yes, sir, my brother. How are you?
So far, so well.
Good,
good.
good.
If not better.
There you go. Always think yourself a perfect being.
Yes,
Think
that's
yourself a
right.
loser. I'm sure you'll achieve it. But think yourself perfect. You know, you'll achieve it as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, elder, we just finished the first chapter.
Yeah.
So we were just, you know, just going through, you know, certain things that stood out to us in that chapter, just having a quick discussion on it. You know, I know you are the leading Garvey historian right now.
Yes.
You know,
yeah, I like to talk a little bit about the course itself.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
You know,
yes, sir. The
when
floor is yours.
yes, yes, sir. I remember years ago when I first read this other book called the Machiavelli, the Prince. You know, the Prince was the name of it, but you know, it was a book that was written by an elder statesman who had, you know, some success in life and some challenges, but you know, family of course got killed and ran out of the country, and he was in exile. But he used to counsel his nephew, and you know, the course of life and how to gain power and conquest and all these different rules of engagement. And I thought that was some pretty, you know, pretty sinister at times counsel, but it was, you know, it was still politically wickedly wise counsel that he was given. And then years later, when I began to start studying the philosophy and opinions of Mr. Garvey, and realized that he also gave counsel, but to future leaders of the association, and that the counsel he gave was private. You know, it was similar in some ways to the Kemetic mystery school system, and that it was, you know, select persons would receive it. Those who exhibited fine character and who exhibited, you know, adherence to the philosophy were given this accelerated course. You know, the first course being the students who were trained for 30 days a night. They ate together, they studied together, they did homework together, you know, they did everything together. And these students, there were 11, I thought it was probably was intended to be 12, but 11 actually attended and 10 graduated from the School of African Philosophy. These were advanced leaders of the association who had been around for years. Several of them were born and raised in the movement, you know, were presidents of the juvenile division. They worked their way up to vice president, president, commissioners, all kinds of positions. So he chose a select hand-picked group of people to take these first courses, and there were some extended courses he was going to offer later that, you know, we didn't get the benefit of enjoying. Not only did they graduate, you know, from the School of African Philosophy, but the first class itself was taught 42 different subjects, or 42 lessons, you could say, in the School of African Philosophy, which is similar to the principles of Mayat. No surprise there. And, you know, I say Mr. Garvey was channeling Mayat, you know, even with the ostrich feather hat and other things. He talked about the ancestors communicating, even talking about, in some sense, the Orisha or the Netaru, when he talked about looking for me in the whirlwind or the storm. These were invoking spiritual dynamics, inculcating them in his worldview. Even some of the Adinkra symbols that were symbols also of the different auxiliaries, show a African cultural strain that was pretty strong in Mr. Garvey's life. So anyway, um, as he put together the School of African Philosophy, he trained these men and women to be leaders. At some point he had feared that the UNIA may be taken over or just destroyed some kind of way, either in his absence or in his lifetime, that the forces would during the World War, etc., come in and certain things would happen. So he wanted to make sure before anything else happened that he had people who were qualified to rebuild and restore the organization to its former greatness. So he trained these people, and they came like pretty much like 12 disciples or the 12 apostles, in the life of Yeshua the Christ. So anyway, the school was important. He mentored them for a few years after they took the course until his passing. But it was a very, very important course, and it was meant to be private. It wasn't meant to be, for everyone's consumption, because leaders need to have an advanced knowledge, in order for people to follow their leadership. And if everybody knows the same thing, everybody's gonna want to be, the leader, and no one's gonna listen and accept advice from anyone else or direction. So, that was a thing too, which ultimately, kind of caused some undermining of certain organizations, when everybody kept competing the way, some did. But anyway, so Mr. Garvey's association had these leaders. Many of them took office as president general, succeeding Mr. Garvey on different levels. There was a second class. Now, the first class got to 42 lessons. Every other class after that only got 22 lessons. So those are the ones that we have available for print. 20 of the original 42 were not to be written. And they, covered different subject areas that were unique to that time, and they were not to be shared. It was kind of an internal nature. Certain things need to be known about how to deal with, the Zionist community at the time, and other things that may not be germane to future generations, but were specific to that class. But anyway, there was a lot of important lessons that they learned in the first class. So the second class did receive, the same leadership training in essence, but two graduates from that one would have been Benjamin Jones and Ethel Collins, were two that later held important positions of leadership within the UNIA. Most of the others we don't know much about. The first class, pretty much all except, well, Joseph, was it Joseph Gray, I think his name was, but he was the one that didn't graduate. But 10 of the 11 did. Arthur Clement Moore in Toronto, and Ethel Waddell and Thomas Harvey, James Stewart, Charles James, and others, Sarah Isaacs. But anyway, there were a number of graduates who became secretary generals, commissioners, etc. So they did what they were supposed to until their death. They all served gallantly different positions. They had feuds at times, but they all pretty much stayed on course. Now, you can see that in the message to the people that was edited by Dr. Tony Martin and um, edited by Dr. Tony Martin, but um, um, published, by Tony Martin, but the foreword by the Honorable Charles L. James is slightly different than the School of African Philosophy that was published by Robert Hill. There were the notes or minutes from the Honorable James R. Stewart, who was the first successor to Marcus Garvey. Now, arguably, they both claimed to be the number one students in the class, and they actually were kind of, pretty close, in relationship. They were kind of known as ketchup and mustard back in the day. because they were so tight everywhere they went. But eventually they had a fallout. And so, Mr. James went with one direction and Mr. Stewart went another direction organizationally. But so anyway, there's a slight difference in there, but most of the notes and the wording is the same. So that's something to be mindful of. And as people come together to take the course together and develop the same frame of reference and understanding of the course itself, um, you become bonded through your shared training, the same way any other group through, the martial arts school, or any other body, that, churches, other institutions that learn together, train together, study together, come to consensus together, develop a bond that, makes it easier to work with because you all had the same basic formation and training. So I think the bonding that precedes the actual instruction and understanding is definitely important and should be treasured and can be a powerful tool in working together to fulfill the aims of the lessons, which is to make us leaders and organizing our community for its empowerment, building the movement for improvement it was designed to build. So these are very important, powerful lessons from the most experienced veteran organizer, inspirational agitator to ever grace our race. And if we value his accomplishments as we claim we do, and we appreciate his sacrifice and his wisdom, we quote so many of his words, then it would behoove us to dig deep into his philosophy and his leadership training and begin to learn how to, better practice, some of the teachings, that he offer us, and how to conduct ourselves, how to understand the nature of institutions, and to understand how to operate during times of war, how to see beauty in ourselves, and how to do all sorts of things, get intelligence, knowledge, etc. So all these lessons are valuable. They are separate courses, but again, they were designed for accelerated training for those who already were to some extent practicing these things on a certain level. So we may have to go over them a few times and begin practicing, because practice makes perfect. So the more we do that, the better we'll become at understanding the second, third, fourth time around. But it's important at least to broach the book and begin to talk about these things. So I've read the book several times, and look forward to continue reading until my day of retirement from this earth. But it's definitely a valuable tool, I think, for all who seek to understand the mind of the Mosiah, which was on fire with the desire for empire. That's all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I remember you telling me that the book only got published because Robert Hill was gonna put the book or put the information in one of the Marcus Garvey papers. So Tony Martin's kind of beat him to the punch. How is that? What was the history behind that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, the classes were private and weren't ever going to be exposed to the public. Unfortunately, when Mr. Robert Hill was teaching or doing some kind of workshop in, I think, Detroit or somewhere, in one of the middle states in America, and during the process of that, he had one of the students in the workshop was the grandchild of President General Robert Stewart. So, Robert Stewart had died by then, but his wife and children were still in Liberia, where the family had moved from Cleveland. So anyway, when he contacted, when he saw, Robert Hill, and told him that the family's still over here and they have a lot of rare photos and memorabilia and all sorts of things, Robert Hill took a trip to Liberia, and they gave him, copies of the lessons that Stewart had, taken down, and a lot of the history, the photo of the 1941 convention, etc. So anyway, he had got these things, and since it was coming up on the 100th anniversary of the birth of Marcus Garvey, he decided it would be an explosive, book to put out to the public to let everybody know what Mr. Garvey was thinking and his inner thoughts expressed through this course. So anyway, he was about to put it out, but Mr. James was kind of Charles L. James, who at the time was President General of the UNIA ACL Rehabilitation Committee. He was concerned that Robert Hill, as he kind of characteristically has done, would kind of um, publish some things that weren't exactly true, and that he would, possibly alter the teaching. So he wanted to preempt his publishing of that by putting out his own lessons from the School of African Philosophy, and granting Dr. Tony Martin is at that time was considered the official, not the official historian, but the official or the authorized, I think was the word they used, authorized historian of Marcus Garvey, that the UNIA had recognized. So he wasn't really a UNIA historian, but the authorized historian of Marcus Garvey. So anyway, they authorized him to, because of his relationship with Mrs. Garvey before that, they authorized him to, start to publish the course. So anyway, it went public, and so you had these two versions came out, roughly the same time. And so anyway, it's a lot of important information in there. But also, I would say that because he was teaching this to people who had already been practitioners of the philosophy and who already were advanced in understanding the philosophy, is kind of premature to jump in. It's like jumping past algebra, past geometry, jumping past arithmetic and going straight from learning your numbers into calculus. It's going to be kind of confusing if you don't, start from the ground up. So those who took the course were again advanced already in practicing the philosophy, had traveled with Mr. Garvey on the road, had led divisions that were 40,000 members strong, had traveled commissioners all over the place. So these were not A1 day one students of Garveyism. So if you don't have a good, strong foundation before you get into the course, it may confuse you more than it, instructs you and strengthens your knowledge. So it's important to have a good foundation before taking on the course. That way you can understand things from because Mr. Garvey was very consistent with his philosophy. So once you're rooted in it and grounded in it, then yeah, it becomes a lot easier to understand.
No, I understand that. But this was actually the first book I ever read in my whole life.
Oh yeah, well, you chose a doozy.
No, it's an elder gave me the book and said, "Yeah, you need to read this." He asked me if I knew who Marcus Garvey was, and I didn't really know, other than his face on a Ludo board. But this book changed my life, and I think there's a lot of information in there to strengthen people in the community or people that want to do community work. It kind of tells you how you should conduct yourself, how you should look, how you should carry yourself. There's a lot of, if you're going to be a leader for Black people, you have to read this book. That's
Yes.
my opinion. Because if you're going to go in there and just be a fool, that's what's going to happen. Because you're not going to have a moral compass. This book gave me anyway a moral compass to kind of how I should conduct myself in the public, how I should look. That's why I always wear a suit. I don't wear a suit no other time, elder.
Mm.
When I go in front of the people, 9 times out of 10, you see me suited and booted, ready for the work, to have that impression that I take pride in what I'm saying to you, and I look like I take pride in what I'm telling you to. I'm not turning up like I slept in the clothes last night. I'm not talking to you like, and I ain't brushed my teeth. I'm conducting myself in a worthy manner, because this work, it deserves it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Our community deserves our best, and people won't follow you if you, like you say, look like you just woke up in your clothes and wrinkled and smelling musty and up in their face, trying to tell him how Mr. Garvey's philosophy has helped you become successful in life, and they looking at you like, are you crazy? I'm not following you. I'm not gonna, why would I want to be like you? What have you got that I don't have? And what are you doing that, is so impressive? So, yeah, we want to be an example of what the philosophy produces, in our thinking, our talking, certainly our image. But yeah, certainly a lot of lessons that, um, that they speak to the many mistakes I've seen Black leaders make that were avoidable had they had this course. So it is certainly mandatory to me for anyone
And
who seriously looks to lead the race.
also character, he mentions character in this book a lot, and character is very important. That's why I
Yeah,
say you gotta love Black people more than they hate themselves. You gotta have a certain character when you're dealing with our people, man.
yeah, you're not even supposed to take the course if you're not of certain character. In fact, Mr. Garvey said that, um, when wealth is lost, nothing is lost. When health is lost, something is lost.
When
But when
character,
character is lost,
everything
all
is
is lost. Yeah.
that's right.
And if you look at it, even historically, like, the Great Wall of China, for example, um, they took, 100 years to build, and, plenty of people died trying to put it together. It was stretched for like 1,100, miles. It was a huge, huge undertaking to make this monolithic, structure. And once China was able to put this great wall around it, it finally felt safe and secure because for the first time they built a wall that no one could scale, no one could broach, any kind of way. It was impenetrable, and they had the guard towers and everything set. So they finally feel safe. And within the first 100 years, they got invaded 3 times. And people wonder, how did they get invaded? They said no one could go through the wall, no one can go over the wall. Yeah, they didn't have to. They paid the guard at the door a few dollars to get in, and they went in there and ransacked it. So they were building the outside structure, but weren't building the characters of the soldiers who was supposed to protect the structure. So without strong character, yeah, everything else falls apart. You just have a good idea, a good, structured movement is great. But if you got a bunch of con artists and, fast talking slicksters in there trying to play games with people, and, a bunch of, bums in there who, trying to exploit people, it's going nowhere. So you definitely have to have character, leaders with good character, integrity, and trustworthy. And when the enemy comes and starts bad mouthing them, you'll know, oh no, not him. This guy wouldn't take a dime. He wouldn't, accept bribes or exploit people. I know him personally. He's a good man. So yeah. And then who wants to teach someone who they think is going to exploit people? You don't want to waste your time. Just like in the Kemetic Mystery School system. You want your heart light as a feather. You want to make sure that you treat your mother kindly, that you do your friends love you, your people, your children respect you. Once you have good people, yeah, anything's possible. But yeah, you can be a absolute genius, but with a poor character, you're useless pretty much. But with good character, as Mr. Garvey said, with the health and the wealth, you have a good character. If you lose wealth, you can regain it. You got the discipline and everything necessary to go back, and the work ethic, and intelligence to be able to regain that wealth. Same thing with health. If you have that good character, yeah, you'll have the discipline, and you can eat the right diet, and regain some degree of improved health. But even with great health and wealth and poor character, you can gain the world but lose your soul. And it's nothing but a rich, healthy piece of stuff I won't say on this conversation that nobody loves and nobody respects and nobody cares about. So yeah, character is above all most important. But yeah, he did teach a lot of lessons. Many things that are practical, universally, timeless. They no matter how 100, 2, 3, 4, 500 years from now, they'll still be relevant, practical, knowledge and skills. And believe it or not, I've met several Europeans who told me they've actually read the book. So this is a book that's directed toward us, for us, but This is something that we really should treasure as others outside the group that it wasn't intended for even treasuring the material in this book. So yeah, I definitely highly recommend it for anyone who's serious about, taking a leadership position in the race. And anyone, yeah, I mean, it's just, even if you're not striving to be a leader, there are certain benefits in studying the material nonetheless. So yeah, you do yourself a great favor by going through this book carefully and probably, like I said, on several times, because first time is so much information, your cup may overflow. It's pretty quick, so you got to go back and get a second drink.
Yeah, so I've read this book maybe 15, 20 times.
Oh yeah.
I've got about 5 copies of this book. I've probably bought about maybe 500 copies of this book over the years and gave out to people.
Mm.
I've sent it to prisons on our prison book drive. This book is, for me anyway, this book is a very important book because, I was saying that we can know about Nat Turner, we can know about Malcolm X, we can know about J.J. Dessalines, but if we don't have that race first mentality, if we don't have that leadership quality, if we're not going out into the community to help our people, then our knowledge is just knowledge. It's not applied. It's kind of dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Even like you said, race first. His famous saying, of course, now he wasn't necessarily the first person to use that term that got coined, but he did, use that term. In a world of wolves, one must go armed, and the best defensive weapon within reach of the first race is to practice the race first through all parts of the world. And that's a paraphrase. But, so, we always say we are the first race, so we should practice race first. But even that simple concept is in the book is difficult to understand because many people who are religio nationalists, black nationalists, people who are, talking, political black power, but they, pushing the communism, or they pushing some kind of cultural elitism, or some other institution. They're kind of missing the point of race first. Now, we are in a racist society globally. Racism is one of our major issues, and since we're being attacked as a race, we need to be able to come together as a race and defend and protect our interests as a race until we can neutralize the racists who have, in many ways, wreaked havoc upon our race. So it's not a matter of trying to promote a particular culture over another, or to use your cultural preference or interpretation of things over somebody else. It makes, a lot of us want to be the culture police, and you ain't African because, that sister got straight hair, or you ain't African because you say hello versus, hotep, or, you ain't down because of this, that, and the other. But we don't need no culture police at a time, where people are killing us again. Not because we say hotep. When that white man pulls you over in that police car, he don't ask you what religion, what culture. He don't want to know your tribe. He's gonna say that one thing: nigga, get your black ass out of this car. And ain't gonna be a whole lot of nothing else to it. He don't care whether you Muslim or Christian or whatever you are. He sees one thing. So as he is unified in how they treat us, we should be unified in how we treat them. And it shouldn't matter, whether we got lapas and boobas and or whatever we got on. The sister on the street is just as important as the sister in the temple, and the brother in the mosque, and everyone else. So to see past religion, I knew some folks, different black nationalist religious groups, who were more religious than they were black. And so, like when the Sudan situation happened, they were sympathizing more with the Muslim oppressors in the north than they were with the black folks who were being victimized in the south. Because of that, they didn't have that allegiance to race first. When the white man came to Africa, we were of different tribes, different, groupings. And so when, one white man oppressed, this group, the other group was like, hey, that's their business. That's their problem. We weren't seeing ourselves as a race. We saw ourselves as different nations, different tribes. So our allegiance wasn't to the race as it should have been. They were coming as one race, and we were coming as nation states and tribes, etc. So, we didn't realize that what happened to them at night was going to happen to me in the morning, and so we needed to come together. But when Mr. Garvey came with the idea and the concept of race first, it's another whole dynamic altogether, and it teaches us to submerge, as he say, our political machinations and religious scruples that divide us, and begin to unite, around a program that's based upon love for the race and all its different cultural, spiritual versions and iterations or whatever. So yeah, but just that simple concept, sometimes people think they're practicing it because they're pro-black, but that's not really necessarily race first. But it's something that we should definitely understand from a fundamentalist perspective. That's why the creed of the UNIA, African fundamentalism, is important to know before you even study the message to the people. Certain fundamentals like that. That way you know enough of the philosophy to understand the vein in which the course was written.
Yeah, you mentioned a very important thing about sisters with the straight hair and all of those things. Like our events that we've done over the years, a lot of people have said that's what they like about the events that we put on, is because we don't discriminate against our people. In fact, I'd rather the sister with the straight hair there than the woman in the locks and the daishiki and all of
Right.
those things, because we're trying to save souls. We're
Right,
trying
right.
to reach the hearts and minds of our people. And a lot of the time, those people already they're just dressed up. I don't want to. Let me just speak truth to power. They're just dressed up coons.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you get some of them man there with their European woman there full of kente from head to toe. We talk about all kind of African pride, African love, and you got that next to you.
Right.
Khaled used to say, you're right. She has got a black boyfriend, because no black man has a woman outside the race. Only a boy would have that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? You know what I mean? So, it's very important that you touched on that, because I think sometimes that we forget those people in the community. This is what the work's about. It's about reaching the wider community of our people. And if we're just isolated to people that act a certain way, or speak, not even act, they speak a certain way, because if we acted a certain way, the problems of our people would be solved. So clearly, all of these people with these African-centric, all of this stuff is not solving our problem. So we need to reach a new generation of people that will bring something else to the table. That's my stance anyway. Like we got to be in the gangbangers. If nobody reached Malcolm X, we wouldn't have a Malcolm X.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Malcolm X is probably one of the other than Garvey, of course. He's one of the most brilliant black men that we've had.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was in some ways like an Apostle Paul, so to speak, a Garveyite who kind of came around later in life and became one of the leading spokespersons for Garveyism, even though he wasn't he was, people always say that his parents were UNIA, but they don't say that when it comes to the church. If you were a Baptist and your parents were Baptist, they don't say, "Oh, my parents were Baptist." They say we were Baptist, and the whole family was Baptist. Same way, the whole family was UNIA Garveyite. Just his parents were in it, and he was just standing around watching. He grew up studying the Negro world, and when he was a teenager, and they wanted him to sing America's national anthem, he told them, "No, I'm singing the Universal Ethiopian anthem, the UNIA's anthem." So he was a man who grew up Garveyite, and he later tried to, in some ways, Garveyitize the Nation of Islam when he joined it. And so he spoke. In fact, he admitted that the whole Garvey movement would planted the seeds of that the Nation of Islam were growing out of, and that that it was Mr. Garvey's philosophy that contributed greatly to Africa's independence and initiated the whole freedom movement, etc. So certainly the cultural, the Harlem Renaissance and other things. So yeah, he was definitely a stone cold Garveyite. But yeah, definitely the the whole African cultural thing. If people think that the culture, which is is useful, we should know our heritage and have pride in it. But culture alone isn't enough. You still need the philosophy of race first, because just because people have one culture don't mean they have all the same philosophy. You can't even get people in the same church to have the same philosophy, even on the same pew in the church, in the same congregation, share the same philosophy on certain things. But that's what we need: a philosophical oneness, a purpose and aim. And same thing, with religion. We had all the African religions in the world when a white man came over there, but we had more Yoruba and Akan and ancient Kemetic folks then than we do now, and that wasn't enough to stop that aggression of these people against us, because we didn't have that spirit of unity and confraternity that we needed as a race versus just cultural differences. So yeah, only way you're going to submerge that is not by redeveloping tribalism in some of its trappings, but you develop that by having a race first philosophy that overarches and overrides that elitist mentality that some of us get, and certainly dealing with the people on the street like you were talking about. I remember from my Christian days, Yeshua, the Christ or the prophet, had talked about when he was dealing with the prostitutes and the criminals and all these sorts of people. The Pharisees sat around and talked about them, pointed at them, and said, "What kind of company you keep? That says a lot about you." But he was telling them, "Hey, look, the sick need the doctor, not the healthy. I don't need to hang around people who are already so conscious and think they know it all and got everything. I need to share some wisdom and knowledge with those who can appreciate and need it." And so yeah, you got to talk to the people in the street, because you ain't gonna have much of a cultural, political, social, economic revolution that you want unless you reach the people, the masses, the critical mass. And the critical mass, are not the know-it-alls, the colored intellectuals or the elite of the world. And it's gonna be the brother and sister who's just coming home from working at that McDonald's, or just coming home from plumbing all day and ain't never read a book about nobody. But if you talk to them and reason with them with the philosophy, yeah, they'll get it. They'll understand it, and they'll be more faithful to fulfilling the mission than a lot of the other people who are too intellectual to get it. So yeah, we gotta reach in as many as we can, different ways, and not discriminate.
Yeah, 100%. And this is the thing: we can't separate ourselves from ourselves, and this is kind of what's been happening for the longest time. This one's a Christian, this one's a Muslim, this one's a Rasta, this one's a Pan-African, this one's a black nationalist. Like, we got to deal with truth. I would love for the day when, regardless of your thinking pattern, you was just an African nationalist with it. You could be a Christian African nationalist, you could be a Muslim African nationalist, you could be, I don't know if you could be a Pan-African nationalist, African nationalist, but wherever you want to be, but you're going to share the same, we can agree on this, and a lot of the time, like I was speaking to with another brother the other day, and he was talking about, our people want to see results. And I was trying to explain to him that we can't get results without you. We need you in the fold to get the results. We need the community to support the UNIA in London and wherever we are, to get the buildings, to get the institutions open. You can't wait for the institution to be open, because even Garvey spoke about that as well. You get them Garveyites that be like, yeah, we did it. You didn't do nothing. You didn't do nothing. You weren't a part of it. You didn't donate. But when it got to the finishing line, you somehow want to take credit for it. But we need those people to help us build, because we need to build something in the UK or in the Americas or in the cat. We need to be building something that is everlasting, that our great grandchildren can inherit. Nobody owns it. It's not brother minister. It's not the elders. It's not brother race first. It's the community, the race first community as well. Like, because we got to set the standard. Because even Garvey said, never go down to the level of them. Bring them up to the truth.
That's
So
right.
we've got this there. This is the standard of truth that we're defending. This is how we're moving. Support us where you can. If you can't give us your time, give us your money, If you can't give us your money, spread the word. Whatever it is that you can do to help this cause, because it's going to benefit you. If you guys support the UNIA in London, we will have after school care for the children. We'll have the schools. We'll have the self-defense classes. We'll have the businesses. We'll have everything that you guys want, that you guys are waiting for, that you guys are in need of. You know, we just waiting on you, brothers and sisters, because we already know what to do, but we can't do it alone. The elder can't do it alone. He needs the support. I need to brother Race First is my support, so I give thanks for a brother like Race First, but me and him can't do it alone. We need a few more people. We don't need everybody, but we need a certain amount of people that's going to be committed to this commitment of liberation of Africa and the building of institutions for our children and ourselves, because we can't forget ourselves. I know Frederick Douglass said it's easy to repair. It's better. What did he say? It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men and women. I understand, but we still want to help our broken brothers and sisters. You know, and a lot of us are broken. Let's be real. We've gone through the transatlantic slave trade. We've gone through separation. We've gone through all kind of things in our journey. We need help. We need time to heal, but we don't have that time. We need to be building, brothers and sisters. It's fundamental that we start to build, because I don't want to hear you say, well done, elder, he spoke well. Or well said, elder. However you say, well done, we got this done.
Right.
Got the school. We got, even if it's not a full school, but we got after school care where the children can come to after their school. Yeah, because even there's a white guy from America called Mark Twain, and he said, you can't let their education stop us from our education.
Yeah.
This is the white guy saying this. So I'm saying we can't allow the European system to stop us from our education, to stop us from our building. Because we need to be building, brothers and sisters. It's like we need to have something here. And anywhere that we are, we need to have something that is going to be here forever in stone. That's where I'm at, elder. And you know, and we love you over it. We love you in London, elder. You already know that you are our favorite historian. You know, I want to interview you as well in the coming future, that people in the UK can get to love you how we love you.
Yeah. Well, anytime, you know how, you know, I'm available. And certainly.
No, hold on, elder. I don't want you to skip past that. I want you to know that we're giving you your flowers while you're still alive. Because we're not going to wait for you to die to say you are the greatest Garvey historian, you're a wonderful person, you're a great family man. We're not going to wait for all of that. We're going to give you that right now while you're still here, so that you can be encouraged to continue to do what you're doing, because we appreciate you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I definitely appreciate you all as well. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, because, you know, part of the, you know, history is not just, you know, the flower you with, you know, interesting stories and that sort of thing. I mean, it's important to learn direction. Miss Garvey used to call history a guidepost to direct us in the true course of life. And when you look at, you know, he used to say that, you know, we can learn from the past, but don't live in the past. And so if you, you know, were to take somebody who's coming from a certain direction and then put a blindfold on them, turn them around in the circles a few times, and then say, okay, you know, go where you were intending to go in that certain direction. They wouldn't know where they're coming from, you know, so they wouldn't know which way to go. You know, but if you knew from which you came, you can get somewhere close to the direction you know you're going in blindfolded. But if you know have been kind of turned around by the propaganda of Europeans and Asians and Arabics, you know, folks, and everybody else is kind of, you know, brainwash you through the school books, brainwash you through the religion, brainwash you in the media, brainwash you all day, every day. You know, when are you going to get back to doing things in your interest and thinking for yourself and, you know, moving as a community? You know, when are we going to rebuild the nation state formations we once had and on the continent of Africa, you know, globally? You know, when are we going to be thinking about being independent and not dependent upon these people to do things for us we can do for ourselves? And once, you know, we begin to organize that again with a simple program, you know, Garvey movement is a simple program for a bunch of complicated people, but a simple program like the UNIA, everything we, you know, want, we can get. You know, there's no question about it. It's already been done, and it's a perfect model of success that we have at our disposal. So, no need to reinvent the wheel. It's already as round as it's going to get. You just have to build it. So I just say, just those who would give the UNIA would try and see the vision and see its success historically would easily see that it's just as viable a program option today. And tell every member in London, every member throughout the UK, every member of the race in Europe, every person comes together. Our work is not done. We had 50,000 people in London, and there was 50,000 in 10. We still need to go for the 10. But every member we can get, it helps that credit union, helps that grocery store, helps that movie theater, helps whatever institution we have. And now we can, support one another. If I go to the barber's going to go to the grocery store. The grocer is going to go to the, black church, or, whatever. The church man's going to put his money in the black bank, and the black bank is going to invest in, black housing or whatever. But once we start recycling that wealth, the world is ours. In fact, Mr. Garvey used to say that in America, without a solid industrial foundation, we nothing but a race of cultural tramps in the political gutter of the world. So, industry is not pauperizing our spirit, begging for everything, but they're actually becoming industrious, technologically advanced, scientifically advanced people. Is how we take over things. And even in Africa, we need industrial technological revolution so that we can reverse the curse and flip the script and become the rulers of the economy. And we'll have all the raw materials to finished goods. And if anybody wants anything, they're gonna have to come to us. And that's their biggest fear, that we will adopt this Garveyite philosophy and program and actually put it to work. That's why they spend so many millions trying to destroy him, and even more trying to discredit him and decentralize the movement, because they knew what it represented. And so we need to make sure his prophetic words that if Garvey dies, Garvey lives, and that his principles will be heard from 2,000 years hence. That we need to make sure happens, so they know they can't kill our leaders and then character assassinate them too. We need to make sure, we are standing by our leadership. If we think we deserve them, we won't deserve them if we keep abandoning their teachings and abandon, their important legacy that we should honor by continuing their work.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's coming up to maybe 20 minutes left in the live. We're trying to keep this short and sweet, family, so that we're not overwinded. We're trying to just read a chapter for those that's listening and have a little discussion after it every week, to keep it going. But you mentioned leadership. Marcus Garvey has that famous speech where he says, "Any leadership." And every time I heard him say that, I have to laugh when he goes, "Any leadership that teaches you to depend on a race." It's just so poetic. But I find that even today, I guess he was talking to Du Bois at that time, but even today, the leadership that we have today is a leadership that's going to keep us bound and keep us enslaved. The only leadership so far is I see the guy in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim. I'm very excited to see what this brother is doing, and I know he's read Garvey.
Yeah.
I know he's the brother from South Africa, Julius Malema. I know he watched Dr. Khaled. I know for certain that this guy studied Dr. Khaled, because I heard some of his speeches. I said, yeah, this is Dr. Khaled. But I'm very excited to see what the brother in Burkina Faso is doing. I think that is the leadership that Garvey was talking about. It's in the modern day.
Mm-hmm.
That is for the people. That is he's nationalized everything. The bank's gonna be nationalized. He's even opened up a tomato factory, because a lot of our African brothers love the jollof, but we're importing tomatoes from Europe. No, brother, raise first. We're importing the tomatoes from
I
Europe.
know.
Why
It's
can't we produce
appalling.
these tomatoes in Africa? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm very happy to see what this elder. Well, he's not even an elder. He's younger than me. I'm very happy to see what my little brother is doing.
Yes, indeed.
And I
Yeah.
don't know if you're aware, he gave a speech a few days ago about education and
Yeah.
the presence of the teachers and the the role of the teachers. And when I listened to this brother speak, man, I was like, you know what? This is a brilliant black man. Like, he was talking about how the teachers are the ones, like, many children are coming from broken life experiences, and you know, they're coming from war-torn experiences and things like that. And I think that's what Garveyism is, because we've gone through that experience already. We've gone through a broken life experience. A lot of us are hurt, and you can hear it when we talk. Some of us, we're very bitter, we're very anti-men or anti-women. We've had a negative experience. So the teachers that are teaching the young are very important for the future of Africa.
Mm.
And we are teachers. All three of us on this live, we are teachers. So it's very important that we understand the role that we have. The role that we have for our people. It's very important that we understand this. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people say, like, brother Ray's first will tell you all the time, they call me the sinister minister because I'm very cutthroat. Yeah, but, you know, I it's from love though. I'm very sinister from the love. I'm like, I'm very, you know, I hold my post, I hold the line 100%. But I do this out of love for my people. It's from love why I cuss sometimes.
Yeah.
It's out of love for my people. It's not from hate. I don't hate my people. I love my people so much so that I want so much better for them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Garvey used to call himself an inspirational agitator. And sometimes that's what you got to do. You know, you can't, you know, in urgent times, you can't sit around and flatter people to death. You know, you got to tell them the way things are and give them, you know, an objective sense of reality and what condition we're in and what we need to extricate ourselves from a losing position and, you know, advance ourselves to a winning position. And, you know, it's going to sometimes, you know, just like a coach on a basketball or any other kind of, you know, sports team, you don't go in the locker room when the team is losing and say, hey, y'all doing a good job. Nah, buddy, you get your lazy butts up there and you start communicating. You do what you got to do. You go in there, you win this game. And, you know, you talk tough love. And that's what they need to hear. That's what they need to hear. And, you know, after it's over, you can apologize for being a little tough if that's what's needed. But, you know, we don't apologize. You know, be saying what needs to be said. And we're going to do what needs to be done to accomplish. You know, anybody good at making excuses is seldom good for anything else. So, you know, I'm not making excuses for being subjugated and you know, letting the ball slip. You know, we already inherited somewhat of a losing position, you know, after our enslavement, and we had to catch up. Mr. Garvey, you know, helped us learn to advance and get ahead somewhat, but there's far more to be done. I remember during that time, the guy wrote an article about the civil rights movement that came about after Mr. Garvey's death. And he had talked about how some of them had ridiculed Mr. Garvey back in the day, and when he was the head of the largest movement. But he was talking about African redemption. He was talking about repatriating to a land of our own. He was talking about building industry, and they all mocked him and laughed at him and told him all we need is civil rights. Just let the white man pat you on the head and give you, you know, a couple trinkets here and there. That's all we need. You know, so they kept marching and marching, and they ain't moving an inch forward. They kept marching and going nowhere. And then he looked at, well, who did follow the plan of Marcus Garvey? The Zionists did. They got a land of their own. You know, they wound up developing industry and trade. Now they're a powerhouse in the world, even though they less than a tenth of our population world. Matter of fact, they probably less than 100% of our population worldwide. Yet, you know, they got nukes. They have, you know, all kinds of power, intelligence, gathering agencies in all countries around the world. I mean, these people are wealthy, powerful, influence media, everything, law. You know, yet, you know, we have been, you know, physically, you know, we've always proven we are the strongest on the planet. You know, mentally, some of the greatest geniuses that ever existed, greatest inventions ever designed were by us. You know, we were the first ones who, you know, developed civilization, produced the, you know, stars, the mere calculus. You know, we've, you know, done all these great things in the past. Yet when it comes to looking out for our own self-interest, you know, we, you know, let these other folks advance ahead of us. So, you know, anyway, it's time for us to start putting our brains to better use to building our own security base. You know, Mr. Garvey used to say that, you know, Europe belonged to the Europeans, Asia belonged to the Asians, and, you know, the Almighty bequeathed to us this land called Africa, which we've been running successfully for thousands and thousands of years until these other people came and took our birthright, our God-given right, to
Amen.
regulate our own homeland, our own vine and fig tree. So it's time that we, follow the divine injunction and regain what was taken from us. And we can't do that, following his educational teachings and his training. No master trains his pet to bite him. So we got to start thinking for self and doing for self and being more independent again. But anyway, that's my thought for the day. I know it's coming close to that witching hour.
Yes, sir. We got 10 minutes left. Like I said, we try to keep it to the 2 hours. I know some of the chapters may be a bit longer, so it may go over, but our intention is to do this every week till we get through with this book, and then we'll move on to another book. But also we want to start reading some of the speeches from Garvey. Also, that will be just a separate upload onto the YouTube. We're trying to develop a social media presence, because I think that's a way in which we can reach the mass of our young people anyway, and our people in general. Because our people, they're living their life. They're in the, as they call it, a struggle. A struggle is not something that's nice. You know what I'm saying? We use this term lightly. To struggle means that we're wrestling with something. So I understand that our people are, got a lot going on and these things. So we just try to keep it short. They can listen to it as they please. It will be online forever until they ban me, because they got a habit of banning me from things. I got banned on Instagram before, and they had to open up a new account. But we will keep pushing. Garvey. There's a poem called "If You're a Garvey." I'm actually gonna post that as a story in the YouTube, just so that people can read it, because there's a lot of struggle that come with being Garveyites. It's not an easy road. It's not a bed of roses, but we continue to do the work.
Stiff upper lip.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it says. Keep a stiff upper lip. So we understand this.
Right.
And we continue to try and raise the social media presence. Even if we don't get no members, I hope that the listeners can benefit from the information we're presenting to them. I always say that, we're all leaders, so go and lead, but lead rightly, lead justly, lead in truth. You've got to lead with the truth, brothers and sisters. You can't lead our people with lies, because this is why we're in the position that we're in. You can't lead our people when you want a financial gain, or when you want, your ego to be stroked. This is one of the reasons why I love the elder, because the elder doesn't present, to me anyway. I don't know what other people will say, but to me, the elder is a humble man that's dedicated to preserving the legacy and the right knowledge about Marcus Garvey, where he's not trying to mix it or water it down. He's trying to hold the line on the teaching of Garvey. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm a younger guy, but I'm trying to keep Garvey's preserved in its right fashion, which is rightly so. He deserves to be known as the Marcus Garvey that he wants to be known as, not the Marcus Garvey that some of us would like him to be.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, because there's too many, too many people who have a prejudiced, subjective opinion that's quite negative of a man who's accomplished so much greatness that no one really should care what their weak opinion is of a person who's outperformed, outthought, outdone everybody under the sun ever. If anything, you should be learning from someone who sets such a great example. That person can't be a fool and have accomplished all that they did, because if they're a fool, then what are you? Mr. Garvey got 12 million people he organized, and you can't organize your own household. And what are you? If he had a shipping line and you ain't got a pot to piss into a window to throw it out of, what are you? So if you're going to judge somebody who's, accomplished far more than you, then you should judge them with some respect, and should learn to, question how they were able to accomplish great things. And we know in the end, it was, he had the conviction, he had the heart. So his words are important, but definitely the love he had generated for his race seeing, all the hardships that we encountered all over the globe, he realized that he just needed one plan of action. We just needed an organization. We weren't outnumbered, just out organized. We weren't poor, just poorly organized.
Mm-hmm.
Organization. This organization is our greatest enemy, so he provided our greatest friend in the UNIA. So with that, I say to his words, there was a poem that someone once wrote to, describing the Bible. But to me, the message to the people in some ways is biblical. It's a, holy text, so I say these words: read it to be wise, believe it to be safe, practice it to be holy. It contains light to direct you, food to support you, and comfort to cheer you. It's the traveler's map, the pilgrim's staff, the pilot's compass, and the soldier's sword. Read it slowly, frequently, reverently, and prayerfully. It's a mind of wealth, paradise of glory, and a river of pleasure. It involves the highest responsibility, rewards the greatest labor, and condemns all who trifle with its holy precepts. And that's how we should feel about, these words of a man who, again, sacrificed so much for so many. And, it bequeathed us this gem that we, had labeled Message to the People. The School of African Philosophy, the Course of African Philosophy is the book title. But the School of African Philosophy, I always think of it, its acronym says SOAP, which is what cleans. We ain't talking about brainwashing in a negative sense, but we do need to psychologically wash our brains of some of that stuff propaganda has placed in it. And so this SOAP, or the School of African Philosophy, is to get us out of this Eurocentric mindset of thinking and start, looking to ourselves for the solution to our destitution.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And on the back of the Message to the People, yeah, it's got a few quotes, but one of the quotes it says is I have given them all I know, and that's from Marcus Garvey. But the Honorable Charles James says, "Let me hope that into whosoever hands these lessons fall, that they may use them wisely. For in these lessons there is eternal life for Africans at home and abroad. In that I testify to God. In that I testify to God's greatest gift to our race in the person of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey." And I want people to understand that Marcus Garvey was a gift to our race, brothers and sisters. There's never been another man like Marcus Garvey. I don't care what time it was in, whether it was in the 1920s or the 2000s. Marcus Garvey remains the greatest black man. And I've actually changed that statement now to say he's the greatest man to ever walk this earth, regardless of color.
Yep, I agree. Hell, Moses, led 3 million people. Marcus Garvey led 12. So you can put him back, go thousands of years back if you want. But yeah, I've never seen someone, take a losing position. You imagine being on the chessboard if you play, and somebody takes your queen, they took all your knights and your rooks, and you're in a losing position, and it's only moments before you get checkmated. And somehow within a few moves, they got a winning position. They done took all the enemy's pieces and flipped the script, and they got you, the enemy cornered. And this is kind of what Mr. Garvey did. The miracle of Marcus Garvey was able to accomplish so much, in the citadel of white supremacy, right in the belly of the beast. He was able to do things that, people couldn't do on the continent of Africa in hundreds of years. We were battling against this European and the Arab invasion and other things. I mean, he really organized a powerful, powerful entity. He had to be born to do this. That's why I say that when his mother, delivered him, he actually came out and delivered us from racism and oppression and disorganization. That was all we really needed to again accomplish everything we will. So he was definitely the greatest name my lips can frame, as I always say, and the greatest leader that ever graced our race. And I haven't found another that can match him or get the job done the same way. I love to see that. He always said, people like Trey Orr and others, the uncorrupted youth might be the best people to place the message to the people, through their ears and, to their hearts. while they're still young and sincere and ready to do all these great things for life, corrupts them and spoils them. But yeah, we can reach the youth with some true unadulterated Garveyism. The world is ours. It's everything that we want, we will accomplish. I'm certain.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir.
So, Brother Race, first before we end this this live on this beautiful Sunday, is there anything that you want to add before closing? Before I give the elder the floor for the last words?
Yes, it's something to the elder as well. I just wondered if he has access or if he could get a hold of the missing lessons, the other 22 missing lessons.
Yeah, well, it was 20 lessons that weren't shared. Like I
Yes.
say, I was talked to the only person who graduated from the Honorable Charles L. James, who's still alive. And, from my understanding, the lessons were not meant to be shared with succeeding generations, kind of like say for different reasons.
Mm,
Some of them talked about the Jews and certain things that were going on and, how they need to defend and prepare themselves. Some things, again, weren't meant for others to know, and you didn't want to have them written in case certain things went down. So he shared them only with the first class and wouldn't share them with any other class, for that reason. But it only goes to show that every generation has certain other lessons that need to be learned. So it's these are the fundamental. This is the foundation. But our particular situation may require us to expand upon the lessons a certain kind of way in order to deal with the dynamics of this generation and some of the challenges we face. So, he provided a fundamental basis, like, he gave us the arithmetic. Now we got to build a certain trigonometry or certain, what do you call those, algorithm or certain things to fit certain challenges and dynamics we face in this generation. And we'll probably have to come up with those. But for the foundation, all that we need definitely is in the course. And to not have it, I mean, it's not that you can't learn some of these principles some kind of way elsewhere, but why? If you got everything you need right there in one package, and again, not by a person who's just speculating or adventurous or experimenting with a philosophy, but a man whose philosophy has accomplished everything that we need, at some point. The greatness. I mean, even I can talk for hours about Mr. Garvey's history, but had any little thing that happened the way that it happened, had Mr. Garvey gotten certain equipment and certain soldiers in Liberia, had certain, little things happen with the Isaiah Mortar estate, certain little things here and there that went wrong because of the millions of dollars people spent trying to undermine him, and talking about internal as well as external. It had all these forces not piled up against him the way they did. Mr. Garvey had so many lanes, so many things that were going on. He anticipated so much in advance. It's mind blowing how intelligent he was, how much he planned. I even have some lessons from when he sent the delegation to the League of Nations. He gave them all personalized instructions, about 20 different instructions apiece, what they need to do, who's going to do what, everything. I mean, he had everything. If this was a chess game, he thought 30 moves ahead. This man was just on some other level of thinking. So, to read his words and thoughts and to get into the mind of a Mosiah, not only to analyze what he said, but to synthesize thoughts like he did. Oh man, you got to read the message to the people. That's the only way you're going to get that level of understanding to be able to think and create like he did. Was it who was it? Was it somebody once said that, I don't know if it was Twain or not, but no, I think it was Einstein who said that imagination is more important than knowledge. Because imagination tells you what can be, and knowledge only tells you what is. But when we learn to create and think and come up with ideas, and on the level that he did, looking at the history as as a hindsight to how to plan forward. Yeah, the world is in their world is in trouble. But we're going on to glory and the greater things, and finally get what we've been deserving, and begging others to give us that all the time, kind of like the Wizard of Oz. We had it, all the time. We just didn't know it. And just had to tap our heels. And so, we need to, tap our brains and wake up. And yeah, we'll be in control of our complete control of our destiny. Um, but yeah, the lessons are definitely not known by any living person, and that was part of the design. For them to be, kept secret, or protected from future generations.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I
True.
understand that as well. But I understand what Baba Ray's first was saying, but there is one elders shared with me his name. I'm not gonna disclose his name just for
Hmm.
reference, good character, I should say. But there is one brother Ray's first that's still alive that elder was mentioning, that was a graduate from somebody that was taught by somebody that was taught by Garvey. So hopefully, maybe in the coming future, we maybe can reach out to this brother. And I really do like this brother's energy. I know there's some negative things to the brother, maybe I don't know, but the brother has a good spirit when he talks. He can really talk.
Oh
He's very
yeah.
good when he talks. I'm not gonna mention his name, but the brother, we're gonna try and make that happen at some point in the near future. But ultimately, brother Frank, I will add that with these 20 chapters or 22 chapters that we do have, I feel that it is enough for us to do the work that we need to do. And we can add to these chapters and maybe go into even further depth on certain of the topics that he mentions. Even with the history things, when he mentions about Egypt, we have a lot more information now than in 1920 on history and these things.
Yeah.
So in teaching the younger people, this could be a 3-year course.
Oh yeah.
If we build upon it, it could be a graduate or a bachelor's of science degree if we was to add to it, and we not even add to it, but just
Expound on. Yeah.
he was saying certain
Mhm.
things, So that's where I kind of stand with. But I would like to know the other chapters, like Ray's first. I do understand where it was coming from in the beginning when it was said it was only for a few, because even this book wasn't meant for everybody. It was
Yeah,
just for a few.
absolutely.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Imagine, like you say, some of the things in the book already, make people go, what? Oh man, he was, doing this and that. But imagine if you heard what he really thought about certain things, and that got written down, boy.
Mm.
But everything, though, ain't for everybody. So, yeah, we can only imagine from, like I said, the rest of his writings where his head was. But yeah, that's definitely important. Uh, yeah, but I think we can get the uh, the last living graduate of one of the first class. We talked by a member of the first class, to come on. I actually spoke to him about it, and he said he was amenable. So just a matter of hooking it up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we definitely, even if he doesn't want to teach us that, I would definitely like to connect with the brother. Do you know what I mean? At some point,
yeah,
at some time, because I do feel that he is a brilliant brother. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? 'Cause
yeah,
I've heard him speak, and I'm saying, yeah, he's an uncompromising brother, and
yeah,
he's to be steadfast on certain of the principles of the UNIA, like it means something to him.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I call him the embodiment of the living spirit of Mr. Garvey. He's if anybody can make you feel the spirit of Garveyism, anybody can make you feel like you in 1920 at the international convention and ready to go into work, it's Brother Shaka. Boy, there's, there's the brother I'm talking about.
Yes,
So
sir.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah, I don't, nobody can take that away from him.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna wrap up now. Is there anything you want to say, Elder, before we close off?
No, just Mr. Garvey's philosophy is the beginning of all wisdom, and certainly we need to explore it often, daily, reverently, as much and as frequently as possible. Same way, Christian reads the daily word and all that, and we need some, daily reinforcement of that philosophy, because a lot of stuff will distract and redirect us along the way. And so, just keep those close to the vest. And I was just thinking something briefly, Brother Race first mentioned about Africa. I remember one of my mentors in the UNIA, Elder Cleophas Jacobs, used to tell me about Mr. Garvey when he reached his epiphany in UK, that he felt that Mr. Garvey, the way he described his ordeal and the ancestors talking to him, and coming out of there with a renewed sense of vision, that he considered him spiritually having traveled. That, when he went to bed that night after reading the Book of Tea and brain was afire, that somehow the ancestors, showed him a African past and an African future, and showed him what it would take for us to go from glory to return back to glory and prestige and power we once knew. And after seeing these things and understanding the history and what's needed to be done to, undo the vestiges of our colonization and enslavement mentally, and otherwise, he came back with the right formula, the right words, and the right spirit, and was charged to complete this task. If it cost him his life, so he didn't mind risking, sacrificing anything. He was stoned, he was shot, they tried to stab him, he was, persecuted, politically in the courts, thrown in every prison in the world. And Mr. Garvey told him that jail can go to hell, as far as he's concerned, because only when Garvey dies, Garvey lives. So if he got to do whatever he need to do in this life or the next, he will accomplish it by any means necessary, because that was his call, that was his charge, that was, what the ancestors made him do. So, they told him that they sacrificed for him, so he owed them something, and he made sure he paid in full. So, we thank Mr. Garvey for all that he's granted us. And, we hope we'll do him justice, and, do the movement a great service, by honoring it with our labor and our time, energy, and love, and helping it to accomplish everything it was designed for.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, we're gonna leave you, brothers and sisters, in the spirit of black love, black unity, and the spirit of Garveyism. Let the eternal spirit of Marcus Garvey live on, and we shall join you black here next week. One God,
One God,
one aim,
one aim,
one destiny.
one destiny.